Hello dear students, I hope you are all doing well. In our previous videos, we discussed acids and bases. In this video, we are going to talk about salts. When an acid and a base react, they form salt and water. But what exactly is a salt? Well, a salt is an ionic compound that when dissolved in water gives off cations, which are positively charged ions, and anions, which are negatively charged ions. For example, sodium chloride NaCl is a salt formed from the reaction of sodium hydroxide and hydrochloric acid. Sodium chloride has two ions, sodium Na positive as the cation and chloride Cl negative as the anion. Please remember this. In salts, there is always at least one cation different from hydrogen and one anion different from hydroxide. For example, in sodium hydrogen sulfate, there are three different ions. Sodium, a positively charged cation, hydrogen, a positively charged cation, and a sulfate, a negatively charged anion. Here, the cation is different from hydrogen ion. Now, if you look at lead hydroxide PbOH twice, it has two ions, lead Pb2 positive and hydroxide OH negative. Since there is no other anion besides hydroxide, lead hydroxide is not a salt but a base. Now, we can define salts as ionic compounds that contain a positively charged cation, usually a metal except for ammonia, and a negatively charged anion, which is usually a non-metal. Now, let us look at some examples of salts and their ions. Magnesium chloride. It has one cation magnesium Mg2 positive and two anions, that is chloride Cl negative. Potassium nitrate KNO3. It has one cation potassium K positive and one anion, that is nitrate NO3 negative. Sodium carbonate Na2CO3. It has two cations, sodium Na positive and one anion, carbonate CO3 negative. Ammonium chloride NH4Cl. It has one cation, ammonium HNH4 positive and one anion, that is chloride Cl negative. So you might have noticed that in salts, the positive charge is equal to the negative charge. For example, in NaCl, sodium chloride, there is one positive charge from sodium and one negative charge from chlorine. This means that salts are electrically neutral overall. Now let me ask you a question. Can salts only be obtained through neutralization reactions? The answer is a big no. Salts can also be formed in other ways, such as when metal react with acids or bases, or when metal bicarbonates react with acids. Now, my dear students, let us discuss the types of salts based on their acidic and basic character. We find that salts can be acidic, basic, or neutral. Let us go through them one by one. Acidic salts. A salt is usually acidic when it is formed by the reaction of strong acid and a weak base. For example, when hydrochloric acid, a strong acid, reacts with ammonium hydroxide, a weak base, the salt formed is ammonium chloride, which is an acidic salt. Similarly, when sulfuric acid, a strong acid, reacts with copper hydroxide, a weak base, the result is copper sulfate, which is again acidic salt. Now, basic salts. When a weak acid reacts with a strong base, the salt formed is basic. For example, acetic acid, a weak acid, reacting with sodium hydroxide, a strong base, forms sodium acetate, which is a basic salt. Now, neutral salts. When a strong acid reacts with a strong base, they form a neutral salt. For instance, when hydrochloric acid reacts with sodium hydroxide, the salt formed is sodium chloride, which is neutral. Now let us discuss how you can identify whether a salt is acidic, basic, or neutral based on the reaction. Normal or neutral salts. If there is complete replacement of hydrogen ions from the acid, the hydroxide ions from the base, the salt formed is neutral. For example, when sulfuric acid reacts with sodium hydroxide, the product is sodium sulfate, a neutral salt, because both the hydrogen ions and hydroxide ions are completely replaced. Now, if in a reaction there is only partial replacement of hydrogen ions from the acid, when it reacts with the base, the salt formed is acidic. For example, when sulfuric acid reacts with potassium hydroxide, it forms potassium hydrogen sulfate, which is an acidic salt, because only one hydrogen ion is replaced. Basic salts. Now, if in a reaction there is partial replacement of hydroxide ions from the base, the salt formed is basic. For instance, in the reaction where copper hydroxide reacts with hydrochloric acid to form copper hydroxychloride, only one hydroxide ion is replaced, making the salt basic.